Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to walk you through the body of chapter 10, and in this chapter we'll be returning to the designer company that we set up earlier and recording a series of transactions. You'll see how to enter deposits to the checking account, records checks that were written, and also how to handle ATM withdrawals made for personal use of cash by the owner during the period. Once we've entered those transactions, we'll complete a bank reconciliation for the checking account and take a look at a few related reports. Then at the end of the chapter, you'll get some hands-on practice by doing similar transactions for a different company, the craft company that you created in the end of chapter exercises in chapter 9. One very important reminder before we start: always make sure you're working in the correct company file before entering transactions. This is one of the most common mistakes I see students make, entering data for one company while another company is open. In a real bookkeeping or accounting job, that kind of error can cause serious confusion, wasted time, and unhappy clients. So double check the company name at the top of your Sage screen every time before you start entering transactions. Let's get started by opening the designer company and walking through the chapter 10 transactions step by step. So I'm on the landing page when you launch Sage, and I am going to find my designer company by clicking on Open an Existing Company. If you're using the virtual machine, remember that you need to go to File and then Restore, and then find your backup that you made for your Chapter 9 design company. But for students who are using their own machine or maybe a loaner laptop, you want to click on Open an Existing Company, and then your list, find your designer company. You can look at the time and date stamps to see that you're grabbing the most recent one, and then click OK. Once you logged into the software at the top of the screen, and I'm not sure if you can see that on mine because here it is right here. So you're going to see at the top of the window, it's going to tell you always what the name of the company that you're in. So you should see your name, designer, when you're working the body of chapter 10. When you get to the end of chapter 10, you're going to make sure that you're in the crafts by your name company. So pay very close attention to what company is listed up here, because if you start entering transactions into the wrong company file, that becomes a time-consuming error to correct. You need to remove those. You end up having to remove those transactions from the incorrect company, and then you're going to have to re-enter them into the correct company. So please be sure to pay attention to which company you have open before you enter any transactions. In Sage, the receive money window, which we can get to in a couple different ways. We can get to it on the customers and sales page from the navigational menu. Otherwise, it's under tasks as well. You should be able to find it here. It's going to get you to the same screen. This receive money window is used to record deposits. It can work together with a sales invoice, in which case it would reduce your balance of your accounts receivable, but it doesn't necessarily need to be tied to an invoice. You can receive money from other sources as well. You could borrow money from the bank, you could make cash sales, you could have an owner investment of cash. There are many different reasons a business could receive cash. But that's what we're going to do right now, is we're going to use this to record a deposit. And the deposit is described in your textbook starting on page 308. It's a deposit of $11,000 that this designer company has received from a publisher in advance of doing work for the publisher. So we are going to record that now, and I'm going to start by clicking receive money and then receive money from a customer. And then here we get and specify the cash account that we're using for the transaction, and we're just going to select the checking account there and then click OK. And this deposit that we're recording, which is described on page 308 of our book, occurs on October 1st. And before I get in here and record that transaction, I am realizing that the system is set up to be looking at transactions during the month of September of 2019. So I need to fix that before I enter this transaction. So up top, in the top right where it says period 9, I'm going to double click on that, and I'm going to change that from September to October. So I'm selecting period 10, October 1st to October 31st of 2019, and then I click OK. and ask me a couple questions. I think here, do you want to print reports? No, I don't. And transactions entered. I don't know if you'll get this one, but I'm not going to run a review. And now I'm going to see up in the top right that I'm looking at period 10, transactions during October. So now I can go back to that receive money window, and I can get there a lot of ways. I said earlier, customer and sales, here it is. Otherwise under tasks, there it is as well. Once again, you'll be prompted, make sure it says checking account, click OK. And now the transaction's defaulting to a date at the beginning of October, and that is the date of this transaction. October 1st, we received $11,000 from our customer. So we don't need to change the date. We are going to put the date in as the deposit ticket ID. So I'm going to do 10/1/19. And then we normally would want the name of this publishing company in Sage. We'd store the name in the customer list, but we aren't given the name in the book, but the system does require a name, so we're just going to type something here to satisfy the system requirement. But best practice would be to have this publishing company set up in the system. We're probably going to be doing business with them on a regular basis, so it makes sense to do that. It also provides a better audit trail as to who this money came from, but we're just going to type deposit right here for the name of our customer. And then down below in the Apply to Revenues tab for the General Ledger account, I'm going to find the correct account. We are receiving this money in advance from a publisher. That means that we haven't done the work for them yet. We're going to do work for them later, but they are paying us up front. We actually, once we receive that money, owe them services. So we need to increase our liability account. We have a liability account for this situation called Publisher Advances. You can see it falls into that other current liability account. It also has an account number in the 2000 range, which is indicative of a liability account. So I'm going to select that. And then I can write a little note here about the publisher advance. If I had some detail about, what the advance was for, like a specific project that I might be working on the publishing company for, I type those details in here. The book just says type in publisher advance there. We're going to enter a quantity of 1, a unit price of $11,000, which is going to auto calculate to an amount of $11,000 even. And now we see it up top in the receipt amount area as well. The form of payment we're receiving is a check. Usually I would enter the check number here for the check reference number field. The book is actually asking us to type something in there. They just ask type the word advance. I can also see that our cash account is set up to post to our checking account. That was made based on the earlier selection we made as to which checking account or which cash account to use. So make sure it says checking account, $11,000, the date's correct, and you're showing this general ledger account of $2,400, which is your publisher advances liability account. Once those details match my screen here, you can save the transaction. And now I'm going to close out the window, and to see that that transaction is now reflected in the balance of our checking account, I'm going to click on business status, and sure enough, if I look at the balance of our checking account here, I'm showing $24,750.75. That matches the screenshot in the book, so it posted correctly to our checking account. Next, we're going to record a check that we wrote from our checking account, and we are going to be using the Write Checks window to record it. The Write Checks window is a simplified version of the Payments window. We used the Payments window in an earlier chapter. That's found by clicking on Vendors and Purchases, and then Pay Bills, and then selecting Pay Bill, selecting your account. We used this one earlier. See, it's the Payments window. So the Write Checks window can essentially do the same kind of thing, but it's just a little bit more simplified version of the Payments window. So to get to Write Checks, we have it here under Vendors and Purchases. We also can find it under the Banking area of the navigation menu. We have Write Checks here as well. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to click on New Check. And I have to specify which account am I writing checks from. I'm going to make sure it says checking account there and click OK. And the check that we're writing is described on page 311 through 313, and it's a check that is going to transfer funds from the checking account into a money market account. And these days, normally if the money market account and the checking account are held by the same financial institution, you would do an electronic transfer, not write a check, but they are saying that we did this in the form of a check, and the check number, we're going to type that in, was 4001. The date of the transaction is October 2, so I'm going to click on the calendar icon and change the date there. In the name field of the check, we are going to type in money market account. I'm also going to type the same thing in for the description. And then the amount of the check, we're going to type that in as well. It's going to be $6,000. Before we record the transactions, we make sure that we check all of these details. And the account that we're posting from, or writing the check from, is our checking account. We're transferring it into our money market account, so we need to specify that. Down here it says expense account. That's actually a misnomer. This is not an expense account, it's an asset account to us. So it's, basically the other account, the offset account. Expense account's not a great label, but I'm going to click on the magnifying lens there and select the appropriate account. We're transferring into the money market, so we see 1010, which was for our money market account there. If we had needed to post to more than one account here, we could split, but we do not here in this case. So just double check all these details. Got the check number, got the date in there correctly, the amount, it's coming out of checking, it's going into money market, and then you got the pay to the order name showing something because you had to type something in there. They suggested money market account. So once all those details match, we'll click save. The screen clears and we'll close out the window. If I go back to business status, I should see that the checking account balance is updated and it's $6,000 less now, $18,750.75. So now in the text, we are instructed to record several different transactions involving our checking account. Each of these transactions is either going to be entered on the right check screen. You'll do that with all the payments from the checking account. And then for each of the deposits, you're going to use the receive money screen. And I want to look at page 314 to have you start. The first two transactions that are listed, the $11,000 deposit and the $6,000 payment, are those that we just entered, so we do not need to re-enter those. But the first one that is listed in bold on that page is on October 3rd, and that one, it says it's an ATM withdrawal. And it has a little footnote, number 4, so we had to read the little note below. Number 4, it says for ATMs, select account 3,930, your name, drawing account, and then type ATM in the check number and the pay to order field. So that's a little note, but basically what's going on with those ATM withdrawals is that the owner was withdrawing money for personal use, and it's reducing the balance of the business's checking account, and is also reducing the owner's equity because they withdrew money from the company, and we're recording that through this drawing account, which is a temporary account that reduces equity. So that's a lot being said, but to do that, it's a payment, so all the payments are recorded through the right checks window. So we're going to go here, new check. For the check number, the text instructs us to type in ATM, and also in the pay to order of name field, we type in ATM there as well. The amount of the check was $200, and the date of the transaction, I'll click on the calendar, is October 3rd. And then we need to make sure that this is coming out of our checking account. We see that here on the right hand side, and then down below where it says expense account, once again that's a misnomer. Go here and find the drawing account, should be your name, comma, draw there. And we see the account number 3,930, and the name of the account shows up here, and now we can record the transaction by hitting save. So now I'm going to work through the rest of these transactions. The next transaction, which is at the top of page 315, is a deposit. So I'm going to close out of the right checks window, and I am going to go to the receive money, and that's in a lot of places, but I'm going to go to customers and sales and select it here. Receive money from a customer. So if you remember from the previous chapter, the source of income for this designer company is this person designs curriculum to be used in classes taught by other people. They also get paid from publishers because they've written content and they get royalties from that. And they also teach at a local community college, so they have some teaching income as well. And this first deposit on page 315, it says deposit book royalty. So it sounds like it's an income source there. So I'm going to reflect that on this screen. So for the deposit ticket ID, we just use the date. We make sure that we enter the date correctly here by clicking on the calendar icon. It's October 4th. The amount that we're receiving is $3,965.05. I type that in for unit price. For the general ledger account number, we're going to find the correct income account. This is royalty from a book that we've written, so we're going to select royalty income. And then since I put that in for unit price and not amount, I could have just entered it into amount, but I'm consistent with the book here, so I'm going to put a quantity in of 1, and then as soon as I do that, the amount calculates with the same amount. It probably is more efficient and really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to put a quantity in, so we could have just typed that amount in the amount column to begin with. Normally we'd have the name of the publishing company that we're receiving royalties from, but we don't in this case, so I'm just going to type in royalty in the name field of the customer. And then if we were paid in the form of a check, we'd have a check number. We don't have that either, so I'm just going to type royalty there as well, and then I'm going to click Save. The next several transactions in the table on page 315 are all showing up in the payments column there. So I'm going to close out of the receive money window, and I'm going to go back to the banking area and select write checks and then new check, and then it looks like I won't have to switch screens as much here. The next several, like next 6 or 7 transactions are all checks that we're writing. So on this screen I entered the name of the supplier that we're making this checkout to. It's Office Supplies on Main. The amount I typed in $1,105.68. I entered the date. I manually entered the check number, and then here's an important one for the expense account. It's not an expense we're selecting here actually. Again, it says in the table on page 315 that we are buying computer equipment. So this is a common mistake because we're buying it from a business called Office Supplies, and a lot of students select supplies, but we're actually buying computer equipment from them. So make sure that we select computer equipment there, account number 1,500. We'll see that here. And then all the details are in there. We're writing the check from the checking account, so we're ready to save the transaction and move on to our next one. So the screen cleared, and now we can enter the next transaction, which is also a check, and I'll type in those details now. But before I do all of that, notice that the check number auto-filled here, 4003, which matches the check number in the book for this check to the U.S. Post Office. So for the next few checks, since we're not switching screens up, they're just going to auto-number them for us. So it saves us a little bit of a step. So I typed in the U.S. Post Office in the name field. I typed in the amount of $49. I changed the date, making sure again that this is coming out of the checking account, which it is. And then as far as the account goes, there's a little note, a footnote number 5. It says add account number 7,400 postage expense. So this account isn't in the system. So I'm going to come down here to the expense account area, click on that magnifying lens, but the account that we want, which is numbered 7,400, it isn't there, so we have to create it. So I'm going to click on the new button, and now we're going to set it up. For the account ID, we're going to type in that account number 7,400, click OK. The name of the account is going to be called postage expense, and then we got to remember to change the account type properly here. So this is not a cash account, it is an expense account. So we select that, and then I'm going to click Save to save the account to the chart of accounts. And now I can close out of this window. And now when I go back to this magnifying lens for expense account, I should be able to see that new 7,400 postage expense count there, see its name populated. I check all these details and save the transaction. So the screen is cleared and the check number is auto-filled to check number 4004. According to the textbook on page 315, this is a check to Verde News. So now I'll type in all those details. Alright, so I got those details in there, the date, the check number, the amount, and now I need to specify the account. They said that the account in that table is account number 6,100, which looks like it exists. Dues and subscriptions, it does, and then we could save the transaction. So the next check, number 4005, it looks like it's going to RVP Gas, and we have all the details in the book there, so I'm going to type them in. And as far as the account to post to, besides the checking account, it says that this check is written for utilities, so we should have an expense for that, utilities expense. Yep, 6,400 is the account number, and then we can save it. All right, the next check, 4006, is to Water and Power Company, and the table says we're going to have to add an account for this one as well. So I'm going to type in the details. And once again, to create a new account, if you click on this magnifying lens next to expense account and then select new, you can enter the details. So do we have any details as terms of the account number? Yes, they do, 6,420. Doesn't exist, so I click OK, then type in the name of the account for the description. It's going to be water and power expense, and then make sure that we change the account type to expenses. This is a commonly overlooked step, changing the account type. I see a lot of reports that show these additional expense accounts as cash accounts, so make sure that you're always specifying the account type anytime you enter a new account into the system, and then click Save. Close out of the window, come back to your expense account drop down. You should be able to find that new account, 6,420, water and power expense, and then save the transaction. So the next transaction was a check that we wrote to a telephone company. So we are going to type in those details. And this one was on October 10th. Actually, the last check that I recorded, 4006, the date had changed to October 10th as well, so I will need to go back and edit that date in a little bit. But for right now, I'm just going to keep rolling. And it looks like this expense account specified should already be in the system. It's a telephone expense. And if I look here, we've got that here, 6,500. And then I'm going to save the transaction to post it. So the next check that we're writing, 4008, this is actually sort of a funny one to me. It says long distance company, and that's sort of an antiquated idea. We used to be charged different amounts depending on if our phone calls were local or if they were long distance, and I don't know if that's existed for 20, 30, probably 30 years. I don't remember that since maybe the 80s or 90s, so that's sort of a different idea. Definitely for international calls, you're going to be charged for, but local versus long distance within the United States, that's no longer a thing. At least I haven't heard of it for a really long time. But anyway, we're just going to go with it. The content from the book is probably pretty old here, and the date was the 10th, and it was to long distance company. We're just going to type in all those details. So make sure you're putting the amounts into. It's a common mistake that students leave the amount at zero and just skip that detail. The system will still save the transaction even with a $0 amount. We'll be able to see those in a little bit. But I want to mention that real quickly. And then the expense account here, I think they actually did create a separate expense account for long distance phone calls, and it looks like it is in there. 6,550 is the account number. And if all the details match, save the transaction. Another thing that I should mention too before we get into the next transaction is that we have a cash account balance that's auto calculating after each one of these transactions that we record. And if we look at the table on page 315 of our book, the last transaction we recorded was check number 4008 to the long distance company, and we can see the balance off to the side of that, the running balance, $21,096.69. So we can keep track and just make sure, hey, is that what the balance was from the prior transaction before we record the next one? And I just sort of make sure that we're on track with things, which we are. The next transaction is a deposit, so I'm going to get it out of the write checks window, so I'm going to close it out. And I'm going to go to the receive money area. So I'm going to go to tasks and then select receive money. And then I'm going to enter the details from the book. And it says that this deposit was on October 13th. So change that date. Put it in for the deposit ticket ID as well. So we did know that we were receiving this money from Milwaukee Community College. So I typed that in for the name. For the checker reference number, I typed in deposit. And then down here, I'm going to specify the general ledger account, and it says that we're receiving it from the Milwaukee Community College. And remember that this person, this designer, was having income from teaching. So we're going to select the teaching income, account number 4000, and then I'm not going to enter quantity or unit price. I'm just going to type the amount into the amount column, It's $2,716.19. And once I do that, that same amount pops up here in the receipt amount. Check all those details, and then we can record the transaction by clicking Save. The screen is cleared, and now I can close it out. And the next several transactions, the remaining transactions, are all in that payments column. So we're going to go back to the write check screen. So if you're on the banking area, from the navigational menu, you have write checks here, then select new check. Make sure that the cash account is showing the checking account, and then we can work down the list. So the first one's another ATM withdrawal. So for all of those, they said for the name to type ATM, and also for the check number to type that as well. And then the date of this one was October 14th. The amount was $400. And then it's the owner withdrawing money from the business for personal use. So for the account that we specify down here, we're going to find the owner's name, comma, draw account number 3,930. Make sure all your details are matching up, and then hit save to post this transaction. So I'm getting an error message when I did that. It's saying that the reference number has already been entered for this cash account. It's basically erroring out because I typed in ATM here for the check number. So I want to take a look at that, because when I clicked save and got that error message, it didn't allow me to go in and change that field. It just cleared out, and it looked like I could record another check after that. So I wasn't sure if it actually posted or not. So I went to reports and forms, and I went to the general ledger category, and then I pulled up the general ledger. And then on that report that populates, I want to look at the ledger for the checking account. And I do see that that ATM withdrawal on the 14th did post, even though it had that same redundant reference number. It allowed so I guess it was a warning and not a preventative error message there. So that one's good. It's in the system, even though it had the same reference number there. So now that I'm here on this screen, I want to record another check, because I'm still working that table in the book on page 315. And I got check 4009 to record now. So I'm going to click on the new button. I'm going to type in that check number, since it didn't auto-populate, 4009. The date of this transaction is October 15th. Select that, and then type in all the details. This one also, per that table, says that we have to add a new account. So clicking on expense account and then selecting new, and getting in the details here. The account number is 6,180. Doesn't exist, so click OK. Type in the name for the description, automobile expense, and then for the type, make sure to change that from cash to the correct type. It's an expense account, so expenses, and then save the account to the system. Now go back to the check, find that account in the list. 6,180 was the account number. Automobile expense populates. Now I can save the transaction. So our next check, 4,010, the number populates at the top here, and the date of this transaction is October 17th, so we'll change that, and then we'll go through and type in all the details from the book. It looks like the account we're using for this one is automobile expense. Be careful not to select the asset automobile. It says that it's an expense because we were just fixing the automobile. It's installing a headlight, so we should have an expense for that. Looks like it's account 6,180, and then we can save the transaction. Our next check, 4011, is occurring on October 29th, so we'll change the date there, and then we'll type in the details from the book. Looks like we're paying the Department of Transportation for our automobile registration. So for the account, we're going to find an expense account for that. We have one labeled auto registration, account 6,150. And if all the details match up with this, hit save. Our next check, 4012, also occurred on October 29th, so we don't need to change the date. We'll enter all the details from the book. For the account, it looks like we are using account 1,450, which is an asset account for supplies, and check all the details and then save. And that brings us to our last check, which occurs on October 30th. And I'm going to type in all the details from the book. And then for the account, it says that it's internet service provider, so I believe that we have an expense account for that. We sure do. 6,560 is the account number. make sure all the details match, and click Save. And that was the last transaction from that table. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my general ledger report. So I actually have the screens open, but just walk through the process again. Reports and Forms drop down, select the general ledger category, find your general ledger report, and then when we look at this report, we should see all of the details from the table that we've been recording the transactions from, and we should see an ending balance that matches the book at $22,645.91. If you look at this list and you see any missing check numbers, you can go in and you can double click on the transaction and edit them. If you see any dollar amounts that are showing as zeros here, that indicates that you saved the transactions but without the amount, so you can go in and edit that. And then I do remember that I made a mistake earlier with a date on one of these. Let's see which one that was. That was the water and power expense. It was actually October 10th and not the 9th. So to edit that, I just double click on it and I can easily change that date to the 10th and then just resave it and close it out. And now if I refresh this report by clicking on the refresh button, now that date of that transaction matches up. So make sure that you're coming to this correct balance. You got the dates, the check numbers, all the reference numbers matching what you see on screen here. So now that we've recorded all of those transactions, we're going to transition over to creating a bank reconciliation in Sage. So each month the company receives a bank statement for its checking account, and it's important to reconcile that statement with the balance in Sage. Doing a bank reconciliation helps verify that all the transactions have been recorded correctly, helps catch errors or missing entries, and ensures that the company's cash balance in the books actually matches what's in the bank. So to do that, I'm going to close out of this general ledger report as well as the report chooser. I'm going to make sure that I'm on the banking area from the navigational menu here. And down here towards the bottom, I've got this button to reconcile accounts. And the first thing I have to do here is I have to specify which account I'm reconciling. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to reconcile the checking account, account number 1020. And once I do that, I'm going to maximize the screen. I see all of the transactions that we've recorded that impacted that account. And I've also got some detail down below, and I'm not seeing all the detail I need down here. So what I need to do is click on this little double arrow pointing up, and then expand this little pane at the bottom. And now I've got a field for interest income and service charges, as well as the bank statement ending balance. And that's the first thing I'm going to do here. I'm going to go to this field that says statement ending balance, and I'm going to type in the ending balance that I see on the bank statement. And the bank statement that we received from our bank is on page 317, and on that report what I'm looking for right now is the ending balance, and it looks like it is $23,131.52. So I typed that in there. All right, so then we can see that there's quite a bit of difference between the balance listed on the bank statement and the balance in the Sage system right now. It's showing unreconciled difference of quite a large sum there, so there's an issue. So we need to determine why there's an issue. That's the process of reconciling. Also, it's important too to make sure that the date that you're specifying up top matches the date of the bank statement. The ending date of that bank statement is October 31st, 2019, so that's already correct, but that's important to do as well. And now what we're going to do is basically go through the bank statement and compare it against what we see on screen here. So on that bank statement we have a couple of different sections. We have deposits, we have got an area for checks, and then another area for other deductions. So right now I'm just going to focus on the deposits, and on that bank statement there are three of them. The first one listed in the book is $11,000, and I see here's an $11,000 deposit. The dates aren't quite matching up, and that's probably because it takes some time for the deposit to clear the bank, but the same amount appears. I'm going to check that box. Similarly, we've got another deposit in the bank statement of $3,965.05. We also see that on screen here. Check that box. And then the third deposit also matches the bank statement as well. Check that box. Then we go through and we look at these checks. So when we compare checks, we're not only comparing the check number, but also the amounts and making sure that they both match up. So check 4001 was for $6,000. It's on the bank statement, so I check it. Check 4002 matches in amount as well. 4003 does as well, as does 4004. Now 4005 is missing. When we see that little asterisk, that means a skip in the check number sequence. 4005, I'm not going to check it because it's not on the bank statement. Moving on down the list, what that indicates is that it's an outstanding check. It's a check that we've written that hasn't cleared the bank. Maybe the recipient hasn't cashed it yet. Maybe we wrote it towards the end of the month, although we didn't with that one, it was on the 9th. So for whatever reason, it hasn't cleared the bank yet. So it's an outstanding check. 4006 is our next one. The amount matches, so I click the check mark. 4007, details match up there, as does 4008, as does 4009. And same thing with 4010. Now the remaining checks, 4011, 4012, and 4013 are not on the bank statement, so those also are outstanding as well. And then finally on that bank statement we have 2 ATM withdrawals shown there. So we find those. ATM withdrawal on the 3rd. It's showing us $200. Check that in the bank statement and in the books. And then finally this other ATM withdrawal of $400 on the 14th. That matches up with the detail on the bank statement. Check that box. So it looks like all we have left are a few checks that didn't appear on the bank statement. And now here is the moment of truth. Do we balance? No, we don't. Look at unreconciled difference is not 0. We want to see a 0 here. It'll give us a green check mark. If we don't see that, we don't save this screen. So we've got more work to do. So it says there's a difference. So let's look at this bank statement a little more closely. At the top of it, there is a service charge. So I'm going to enter that, $10. And when we indicate either a service charge or if we had earned interest on our bank account, we also had to specify the account that gets mapped to that transaction. And we didn't have any interest that we had earned, so we're going to leave that alone. But for the service charge, we should have an expense account for that, for bank service charges. And if we look here, we sure do. 6,850 is the account number, bank service charge. Select that. And now, once I've done that, I'm seeing an unreconciled difference of 0. I'm seeing a green check mark. This reconciliation can be posted. It can be saved. So I'm going to click the OK button, which saves it to the system. And now if I pull up my reports and forms, go to my general ledger category, general ledger report, and look at the checking account, I see an updated balance of $22,635.91, and I also see that posting related to that service charge that we just recorded through that bank reconciliation page. So if you're matching up, you're good to go. If you're not, compare the details on this screen against your details and figure out why not. I'm going to close out of this report right now though, and then what I need from you for chapter 10 are 6 different reports. 3 are going to come from this designer company, so we'll run those right now. So each of them, well actually one of them's a trial balance. So if I'm on my report chooser here and in the general ledger category, I have a general ledger trial balance report, so I'll double click on that. And make sure that the date is specified as of October 31st, 2019. If it's not, go up to options and change the date so it shows that. But yours should match up with mine. You should have the same totals here. Make sure to save a PDF of that and give it a proper name per the book, per the instructions on Canvas. This should be Chapter 10, October Trial Balance. And then once you've done that, then the other 2 reports for the designer company are going to be financial statements. So from the report chooser, go to financial statements. I need the balance sheet. The defaults should work there. I do not want 0 amounts, so make sure this is unchecked. And then once you got that PDF pulled up, make sure that your total assets match up with mine, and then create a PDF and name it accordingly. Finally, I'd like an income statement. The standard income statement will suffice. The date periods we should not need to change. Make sure to uncheck the box. I don't want to see all the 0 amounts, and click OK. and then you should have an income statement that looks like this one. Make sure your net income and your details, especially the distribution of income between the two accounts, match up with mine. And then once they do, make sure to save a PDF and name it accordingly. So at this point, I would suggest that we create a backup for chapter 10 here. So we'll go to File, Backup, Backup, give the file a good name here, something like Brian Daly Designer, your name Designer, end of chapter 10, and then make sure that you change the location to somewhere that's easy for you to find. For those of you using your own computers or a loaner laptop, downloads, desktop, or documents. For those of you using the virtual machine, go to the J drive and save your stuff on the network. Once you've done that, you're ready to move on to the exercises at the end of the chapter. When you go do that, make sure that you're switching your company up. You don't want to be entering the transactions from the end of the chapter into the designer company. That's a messy mistake to correct. So make sure you go File and then Close Company. And if you're using your own machine, open Existing Company and find your Crafts by Your Name company. Otherwise, if you're using the virtual machine, File and then Restore, go to your J drive and then find that file from chapter 9 for the Crafts company. But absolutely make sure that you're using the correct company when you start entering transactions.